changed the world. Today, I am wise, so I am changing myself.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. We all know the decision of the Lahore High Court yesterday as far as the provincial elections both in Punjab and KP are concerned. We'll be talking about the ramifications of this decision on overall the political process. Also at this time relevant are the by-polls that are likely to happen as far as on 33 seats as far as the NA is concerned. Also hanging in the balance are the 43 additional seats on which we have we've had the court give accept on the one hand the decision of the speaker, as I understand, but they prevented the election commission from denotifying on those 43 seats. It seems to be a rather complicated kind of landscape when we look at the overall electoral process, the acceptance of resignations, the the non-acceptance of them, and overall the ramifications of this on an electoral process where we're looking at a country steeped in economic crisis. We're looking at a country battling with a security situation at this time. All of those considerations are also, of course, in front of the government at this time, in front of the election commission at this time. What will happen in this kind of a scenario? We'll be discussing all of that today on Perspective. I have with me Rana Maqbool Ahmed, who is a senator with PML-N. Thank you for being with us. We have with us Barrister Safiullah Ghauri, who is a lawyer, legal expert. Thank you for joining us. We also have with us Barrister Yasser Hamdani, who's also a legal expert and lawyer. Thank you for being with us. Rana Saab, before I go to the lawyers, because certainly it is rather, a question of law when, it's a little complicated. I want to ask you, as far as the PML-N is concerned at this time, we've had a statement from Khwaja Saad Rafiq also saying that elections should be held in one go. Of course, that is how things have been done in this country historically, and at this time overall, when you look at the situation, there is clearly as far as the economic crisis is concerned, security situation is concerned, all of those things are very relevant. But what does the PML-N say at this time when we look at the legality of things and the 90-day period?
Thank you, Mahrukh, and my salam to my friend sitting with you. Yes, yesterday High Court gave some directions about the commencement of the elections. It's a single judge judgment. Now, I personally think the election commission will have to respond to it, and if it hasn't decided to go full hog to implement it. They have already announced their meeting with the governors on Monday and go for the thread-bit discussion what to do, keeping in view the total perspective and the viewpoints of different organizations from where they have to seek help for commencement of elections. For example, they want judicial officers to act as returning officers, and they also want a large number of personnel from various departments. They will have to also seek help and assistance from the army and the rangers and so on and so forth. All these details will be discussed with the governors.
But Rana Saab, as I understand, as far as the rangers are concerned, as far as the army is concerned, they have also declined, and they've said that they don't have that kind of manpower at this time, because certainly they are involved in security issues at this time. And there's, as far as the judiciary is concerned, there's been a refusal there also, as we understand the overall situation, as far as giving polling agents is concerned, providing polling agents is concerned. Isn't that true?
Yes, all these issues keeping in view, the governor and the chief election commissioner, they'll reach a certain conclusions, and if they decide, they'll have to get back to the court with all these aspects of the challenges. So I think then maybe they go for intra-court appeal and go for this issue, to resolve the issue to the Supreme Court if they decide it. It all depends upon them.
Let me come back to you. Rana Sahab, let me come back to you. Ji, Barrister Safiullah, as far as the situation is concerned, when we look at the law, it seems that the Lahore High Court has said that they are clear that this 90-day period will apply. And the elections are supposed to be held within this time period. But then on the other hand, there are all these considerations that are also relevant when we look at whether the relevant personnel can be deployed as far as the elections are concerned, whether they have the resources are available or not. How do you look at that, the practicality of it? Do you think that it looks like it will be challenged, but overall, how does one deal with that kind of situation?
Thank you, Mahrukh. I think this sort of brings us back to the basic question of why we have common law courts in Pakistan. Okay. If we were to give effect to the literal meaning of the law, then perhaps military courts or administrative courts could do a better job. Okay. We could perhaps have a civil law system as we have in various areas of Europe, where statutory law is so extensive that you could just give meaning to it immediately upon applying it. Now, there is no disagreement over the fact that Article 224 is clear, and there is a 90-day mandated period. There's no one who can deny that. The judge is very clear on that, and I think every Pakistani ought to be clear on it as well. There is no doubt there. But Pakistan is unfortunately facing unprecedented problems that the courts just don't seem to be aware of.
But are the courts generally supposed to take cognizance of those?
So here's the question. When the courts have taken an oath to uphold law and order, how can we look at just the one aspect, which is law, but forget order altogether? And there is an order to all of these things.
But will the elections not ensure law? Order.
So for instance, one of the things that we require for orderly elections is the deployment of the forces. The Pakistan military has clearly stated that in a formal letter to the Election Commission, that the soldiers are currently busy trying to tackle serious terrorism problems, and they cannot be deployed for orderly conduct of the elections. So we know for a fact now that the armed forces of Pakistan have refused. We also know for a fact that Pakistan is currently going through the worst financial crisis Pakistan has experienced in the last 30 years, with the lowest foreign reserves. And we have, for instance, the Chief Justice of Pakistan saying things like Pakistan is not undergoing any financial crisis. This sort of makes me feel that Pakistani judges are currently sitting in castles of glass, far removed from the realities of what Pakistan is.
Let me take Yasser on board. I think it's an interesting debate. Yasser, should it be important for the courts to look at the capacity issue? Should it be important for the courts to look at, whether the practicality of it also, in your opinion?
Well, I believe...
Are they not interpreting the law?
They are interpreting the law, but obviously the courts have to act within the circumstances that are around, which in this particular case would be the fact that there is no, for now I think holding elections in this country is going to be extremely hard.
But when is it not hard? And the question is that, when do we know when we will be out of an economic crisis of these proportions? Do we know when we will be able to hold elections? What if, when the term ends, we are not in any better situation? Are we looking at some kind of an emergency, which will then lead to an extension of this parliament? All of those questions are also relevant for the judges.
Well, I don't think constitutionally that is something that will fly. You're not going to have an extension of the parliament.
But this is something that would fly, in your opinion?
Well, what has to happen at this time, I think there is a very legitimate case for not having elections at this time, and
there won't be at that time. Let's discuss this. Let me go to Rana Maqbool Sahab. Ji, Rana Maqbool Sahab, as far as the PML-N is concerned, as far as your party is concerned, the practical question is, if we are going to be looking at elections, we are looking at bypolls on 33 seats. Are they going to go forward? Is the PMLN going to contest those bypolls also, as I understand?
Yes, but the stay has been granted by the High Court again for the elections on these seats.
But isn't that, but Rana Sahab, isn't that on the 43 seats?
I think it's all about all the seats, about the by-elections. If at all the by-election takes place, there is no decision as yet the PDM has taken. There's divergent views amidst PDM. There are parties who are in favor of elections, by-elections, participating in by-elections, and there are parties who are not in favor of by-elections, participating in by-elections. PML-N does have a stance at this stage that we should not participate in the by-election. All the same, there is a process of consultation going on with other parties. No conclusive decision has been taken so far.
But Rana Sahab, isn't it better to, do you think there's still a chance? I mean, I keep coming back to it because it seems to me to be the only solution if you could get the PTI on board with some kind of an agreement on when these elections should be held. Then there could be a path set out, which would be a certain path, and that would also help with the economic situation. Is that still on the cards? Do you think it's possible? Do you think that there can be some sort of an agreement with the PTI chief, or no, not at all?
Mahrukh, there are still deliberations going on, and the main stakeholders, they have taken cognizance of this, and maybe there are certain discussions and some agreement while sitting on the parliament table, because as I've indicated about the stakeholders, there's an opinion all over that the parties must sit together and take a decision with consensus. This is not a very big issue.
Isn't Pakistan paying? I'm not. Of course, that's not because of the PDM or because of the PMLN particularly. But there seems Pakistan as a whole is paying a huge price for this kind of uncertainty, which is certainly fueled by the opposition at this time. But regardless, as far as of course, the PMLN would like to, I'm sure, step up and try to, diffuse that kind of situation. No.
So it's a very difficult situation because as far as leader of the opposition is concerned, he is a very unyielding character, and he is not, I think, used to listening to sensible things, and he resists everything which is sensible. By the way, he himself has been doing such things which is not concomitant with the parliamentary traditions and the democratic ethics. For example, he destroyed his own parliamentary party, and he told them to get out of the parliament unnecessarily, and creating a situation for himself and creating a situation for the country. And secondly, he put pressure on the chief ministers of both the provinces, KPK and Punjab, and got the assembly dissolved. His exercise is generally carried out in a very aimless manner. Perhaps he's utterly confused about the futuristic approach about politics. And it's therefore this confusion is getting confounded, and this uncertainty looms over everything, including economy and the peace and order condition in the country. But a better sense of will, God gives him some grain of wisdom, and he thinks seriously, and he comes over to the parliament table and take the decisions along with other parties and fix the date for that, and create a conducive atmosphere and conducive climate for holding of elections. That is helpful to the country. Otherwise, confusion will rather turning into chaos. It has already turned into chaos. And as I've already mentioned, some very powerful stakeholders will have to come in finally if the situation is not settling that way by the role of the opposition, especially the government party, the prime minister, the other leaders of the government party. They have time and again appealing, trying to persuade him that come over, send your rep, come over yourself. We'll discuss the issues. And even President tried to intervene, but he was brushed aside. President, he thinks he's subordinate. He is not the president of the country. So unfortunately, this is an issue of unyielding attitude, which is not, I think, helpful for a politician to decide the issues. That is the problem. So I think he reconsiders his attitude, his language, his diction, his way of addressing people, his way of conducting people, his way of disseminating his views to the opponents. I think that is very annoying, unfortunately. That has been the major problem all along.
But do you think, Rana Sahab, also as far as, let me come back to you. I want to talk also about the ongoing cases against the PTI chief himself and of course members of his party. I'll come back to you. Ji, Safiullah, we talk about we talk about the role that the opposition can play in coming to some sort of an agreement. But overall, the kind of situation that we are unfortunately seeing at this time needs to be diffused at both ends. Don't you agree?
So here's the answer to a question that you had posed earlier.
Okay.
You posed this question to all the guests, which is that when is the right time to hold elections? The answer is very simple. The right time to hold the elections is when the armed forces of Pakistan consent to coming for security and orderly conduct. When the State Bank of Pakistan says that there is enough money in our kitty to conduct these elections. Right now, the entire reason why we are in this rigmarole is because we have to look at it from the perspective of multilateral organizations or foreign countries who are currently giving us loans and giving us that oxygen that we need to breathe. The lack of uncertainty that has been created by the opposition by constantly pushing for elections is why they do not want to give any money to this government, because they don't know if this government is going to go away in 2-3 months. If somehow there was a mechanism devised wherein our multilateral donors and countries who are our friends like Saudi Arabia, UAE and China who have been giving us money were given some sort of a surety that the government which is taking money from you is going to stick around long enough to repay it, or somehow somebody else within the country.
But we need that, then again, the solution.
So yes, so what you say is of course extra constitutional. Now there is no denying that this is an extra constitutional move, but Pakistan is not not foreign to the idea of extra constitutional moves. We are talking about a constitution that has been violated time and again, and once again, by no means am I suggesting that we should violate it one more time. But what I am suggesting is that the courts have taken upon themselves to conduct new jurisprudence as and when they feel fit.
But
they have conducted.
That as far as Yasser, isn't it true that all institutions of the country, whether it is the armed forces, whether it is the government, whether it is the judiciary itself also, and the election commission, are all mandated to act under law?
They are, and that's Article 5 for you of the Constitution. But I do agree with Mr. Safiullah here. I think that there is occasion for a delay, and I think that would be condoned by Article 254 of the Constitution.
But we would be then setting a precedent for the similar kind of delay for the NA also, if the situation does persist.
Well, I would imagine, given that, like Safiullah said, we've had a history where we've had unfortunately we've had coups, but we've also had the judiciary actually giving cover to such actions, and I think that is a possibility that we might have to consider.
But wouldn't the right thing then be for there to be a general agreement on the fact that elections will be held between all parties? What Safiullah is also saying as far as stakeholders are concerned, whether that's extra constitutional or whatever one may call it, there being some sort of an agreement between all parties with all stakeholders deciding that because the current situation is what it is, that kind of maturity would be needed by all political parties.
I think that would be, well, the question really is whether the PTI is actually going to agree to something like that. But that would be a level-headed course, a level-headed course that might not be taken, unfortunately, because that just doesn't suit PTI, and unfortunately that's your sort of the spoiler in the things, you know, the spanner in the works.
But it would only help. But it would only help. I will take Rana Saab's opinion on this also. But it would only help you know, the country as far as you know, our situation, our overall economic situation is concerned, if all stakeholders are on board.
Absolutely.
Because if you're looking at more agitation pursuant to you know, a delay, then we're not going to get that kind of certainty that we need for that kind of economic stability that we talk about.
You're absolutely right.
Ji, Rana Saab, can you hear me?
Yes, sure.
Rana Saab, this is what I'm saying. You know, we talk about economic stability, yes. But as far as economic stability is concerned, if you don't manage to get the opposition, you know, on board, and they persist in the kind of agitation that we've seen, you know, of course, law should take its course. I'm not saying that it shouldn't, but you will not get the kind of certainty you need for your economy.
You are absolutely correct, Mahrukh. We have been already discussing on many occasions, and in many interactions, I've been insistently pleading this issue that the solution is to the parleys. The party should sit together and reach an understanding and create a conducive climate and conducive situation for conduct of elections. This will be having multi-dimensional positive effect on economy, on our situation, and vis-a-vis the business community as well, who are confused what to do. So if we want to put the house in order, then the cooperation of all the parties is the basic fundamental requirement. I wish and pray that Mr. Imran Khan realizes his responsibility and his propriety becomes really the peace and order in the country, instead of creating disturbance and generating reaction and hurling abuses and creating absolutely unfavorable conditions.
But Rana Saab, why have the bipoles? Why have the bipoles? I mean, by that same logic, we shouldn't be having bipoles on the 33 seats also, because, you know, again, that's going to involve people who are going to contest for what, you know, the term that ends in August, for a couple of months, to then contest again. So, you know, if logic or you know, practicality were to be a yardstick, then by that same yardstick, we shouldn't be having elections on those 33 seats also, no?
You are correct, Mr. Rafiq, you were mentioning about. He has given a correct proposal. There should be only one election, that should be the general election along with the provincial assemblies election together. That will be number one, that will reduce the level of hassle, and that will also reduce the requirement of funds, and more so it will be in the interest of the country as well. So time and going to the polls, we're a very poor country, we don't have any funds for the polls. So why to waste money and waste energy on bipolls? Bipolls have become just a joke. How many bipolls would we be holding? We are acting in a very insane manner and misusing law, and then time and again.
But why doesn't the government go to court on that? Have you gone to court on this, on that point, that, you know?
But yes, it's in the process of being considered, and I think there's time left for appeal. I think within a week or so, there is a possibility that our lawyers, they get across to the court with this version.
But isn't it true that on those 33 seats, the schedule has already been given out and nomination papers filed, or am I wrong when I say that? On those
no, you are absolutely correct. It has been filed, but if the court really takes a cognizance, then this process can be stopped for the time being till the decision is made. So this is not impossible for the court to do in interest of justice, and on the principle of propriety. They must put their foot down, because this joke is to end immediately without wasting further time. Now you have also mentioned about the 43 case and their acceptance of, if I'm allowed, I can
please go ahead.
For a while. that their resignation, they didn't give their resignation and they withdrew their resignation. This is all joke. You might remember on the day there was a vote of confidence and they submitted the resignation to the Deputy Speaker who was presiding over in the National Assembly. He announced, I have accepted the resignations. So subsequently, they have been insistingly saying that our resignation should be there. Should be accepted. We have resigned for good. The leader of the opposition all saying insistently every day. And now once they have decided to come back to the National Assembly, now they say they haven't resigned. The Honorable Court should consider this fact as well, because the intent of a National Assembly member is more important than anything else. They have demonstrated their intent time and again that they have resigned. So this...
Let me come back to you. Rana sahab, let me come back to you on that point. Safiullah, when we talk about the intent, how is it possible that the intent on the 30, as I understand, that the PTI resigned en masse?
Yes.
Together.
Yes.
They walked out. And we all saw it on our TV screens. Then they stuck to those resignations. How is it possible that 33 seats they had intended to resign, and on the 43 they are not intending to resign? I mean, it's not
we discussed this on your channel earlier as well. This is clearly a misuse of powers by the speakers. There is no other way to
But it needs to be shut down,
Of course, this was just politics, and there is no other way to it. There is no logic behind it. This is just them trying to play a numbers game,
but
maybe trying to frustrate PTI.
But do you agree that political play in this country needs to be shut down?
I completely agree that
and
political
someone
play
needs to step in
absolutely,
and do it.
100%. There is no denying that. There is absolutely. Earlier you were saying that everybody needs to sit down and talk to each other. These are of course things that need to happen. Nobody can go against them. Nobody can disagree with the idea of everyone coming together, solving the issues. But when it comes to the more practical behaviors of how people actually behave, we know that they don't. We know that this country is unfortunately hostage to a lot of people who are corrupted to the core, and they would do anything to retain their personal powers. There are people here who keep asking for bipoles to take place, but then say that they themselves will not go, they will address rallies. And time and again we are seeing everybody getting so completely involved in politics, so much so that yesterday or the day before yesterday, the Chief Justice of Pakistan actually went ahead and said that there was only one honest Prime Minister. Now he's passing judgments on who he thinks is honest and dishonest within Pakistan as well, which shows the kind of political turmoil and the biases that have seeped into every institution within Pakistan.
But Safiullah, as far as, but then again, I'm going to take Yasser on this also, but Yasser, when we expect our judiciary to shut the political play down, then also, I don't know if I'm allowed to ask even this, but that with due respect, isn't that also them stepping out of their traditional role? They're not mandated to do it. They're not, they by no stretch of their legal, they're supposed to interpret the law. So when we expect them to do that, we are asking more of them than what should be their role, what they're mandated to do anyway.
It's not the place of the courts to save us, the people, from our own mistakes.
Exactly.
So I completely agree with you. I think the courts are overstepping, and I was very surprised by that statement by the Chief Justice. I mean,
I don't want to go too much into the statement, but overall I feel that as far as the courts are concerned, when they interpret the law, again I think that's a very interesting statement when you say that it is not for the courts to prevent people from prevent them from making their mistakes. And if they had earlier chosen a leader who has we are seeing what we are seeing at this time, I don't think there are two opinions on that, then let the people make, by that analogy, then we'll have to let them make whatever mistake or if they don't, they probably won't. I don't think we give our voters as much credit as we should.
And certainly, and even if they were to make a mistake, it's their mistake to suffer. Let them make the mistake, and that's the principle of democracy. You can't have an unelected institution. 17 unelected judges sitting in judgment over the will of the people.
But then again, the question of practicality, the question of what this country can and cannot do, can and cannot afford comes into play. And that is why we want, we are saying that, elections cannot be held at this time, looking at the overall situation. Of course, the government has also said so. As I understand, the Punjab government has also said so. The Election Commission is obviously going to need the help of Rangers. They're going to be needing the help of the army. The way that elections are held in this country, they're going to be needing resources. So how does the practicality of it is the question, right? Let me go to Rana Saab. Ji, Rana Saab, can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely
Rana
clear.
Saab, is the PML-N at this time, of course, Khwaja Saad Rafiq also said that, as far as the elections are concerned, the PML-N is a political party and it's prepared for elections at any time. Certainly, if you're prepared for the by-polls, then by that same analogy, you should be prepared for the Punjab Assembly elections, the KP elections also.
Yes, once there is this avenue is not available to Muslim League N, they'll definitely contest elections with full vigor. And
but I understand as far as the PML-N is concerned, their problem is that they're also at this time, as far as the PDM is concerned, they're thinking of the country and the resources and the fact that it has to be run and it has to be, and you have the IMF, you have to have agreements with all of those considerations are unfortunately, or are also something that the government has to look at, right? It's not just the elections.
Yes, there are a lot of variety of problems and difficulties the government is confronted with, and that will be in fitness of things if the elections are held together in October, which is the due date for elections.
What do you think the PTI is afraid of? Is the PTI chairman afraid that he will lose popularity?
I think his calculations are generally wrong. He perhaps, because it's one-man show, he is a very dominating character and doesn't listen to his peers and he doesn't listen to any suggestions. Had he been listening and he had been amenable to any argument by his colleagues, he wouldn't have committed so many blunders one and after the other. All his moves failed. He resorted to agitation that failed. He came out of the National Assembly and wanted to generate a lot of reaction that failed. Now he has got the provincial assemblies blown up. That hasn't worked. So now he says he'll go jail bharo campaign. I think that will also fizzle out. He is not making correct calculations, unfortunately. But all the same, in the process, he is harming the integrity and the solidarity and the economy of the country. And he is keeping all of us on tenterhooks unnecessarily without achieving any objectives. He must reconsider his policy if he wants to really stay back in politics. Now, my prediction, my assessment is, as far as the by-elections or these, especially the provincial assembly elections, does he think that he'll sweep? He is not a leader of that level that he can topsy-turvy everything. Had he been a revolutionary of that stature, he wouldn't have got defeated at the hands of People's Party and Jamaat-e-Islami in Karachi. Karachi was his city. He had 14 National Assembly seats and 28 Provincial Assembly seats. Where the people have gone? Where are his supporters? If he says that there was rigging, okay, but why not the multitudes of supporters came out and protested? There was not a single soul except for one small clash with the party, and that was all over. That is the support.
But Rana Saab, you think so? You think the by-polls? Of course, he is not himself contesting on the 33 seats now. For whatever reason, whether it's legal complications, what he expects. So you think that those elections, those seats, that those by-elections will show what the correct situation is?
By-elections, actually, the real parliamentarians, who are trained parliamentarians, they think it's an exercise in futility because they'll be wasting time and wasting resources. The other elections are falling within 4 or 5 months. So once they contest the by-election next month or in March, and then they go for elections in October as well, this looks to be a very ridiculous situation. It's therefore the genuinely trained parliamentarians are not keen to contest by-elections. But all the same, if at all the provincial elections take place, you will see the resistance
I'm talking about,
coming from.
Rana Sahab, I'm talking not about the by-election, the provincial elections. I'm talking about the by-elections in the NA at this time. Even those elections, certainly like you mentioned, seem to be an exercise in futility because, this is a couple of months. And for those people to then again contest, it will not only be exhausting, but it's a matter of funds for the voters also, to bring the voter out itself, after a couple of months again, the expense on the one side, making his own people do this. It also will lead to an exhaustion within his own party.
That can be considered. You are absolutely correct. The government party and the Muslim League, they should venture for that as well, just to show him that you are not so much popular. But there is already a consensus of opinion in his opponents that he is not as popular as he claims to be. He always lives in a world of hallucination. He lives in a world of utopia, which is not going to be a real factual thing. And I assure you, he is going to be defeated in the coming elections.
But are you in court? Are you in court on those 33 seats now or not?
Not yet. Not yet. Our people haven't filed the papers, but I think that's in the process of thinking. And I'll go for this proposal which you have mentioned. They must contest the by-elections as well, just to tell him that you are not the only person here. But he doesn't understand. If he fails, he thinks,
it seems a high price. It seems a high price to pay.
Yes. Once he has been so crushingly defeated in Karachi, he is not listening to anybody. He is not accepting his defeat. He thinks that it's the outcome of rigging. Okay, say there is rigging. Where were your supporters? They should have on.
No, but Rana Sahab, we've always seen, as far as the PTI is concerned, I think this is, I don't think I'd be wrong in saying this. Whenever we've seen a big, the PTI commemorating the decision that's come yesterday, as far as the provincial elections are concerned. But if it had been the other way, we would have had them come out and say that, make all sorts of allegations against the courts also. So, if they don't do well in the elections, let me go to Safiullah with this. Safiullah, if they don't do well in these by-polls, there invariably will be a barrage of allegations against the state machinery, against, the whole, as far as the PML-N is concerned, the PDM is concerned, the government is concerned. So there doesn't seem to be any pleasing or, what can say, that there seems to be no agreement.
No one wins. So there's a very simple issue here. The Election Commission has already sent the Finance Ministry a bill of 9 billion rupees to finance the by-polls, because that's what the will of the people supposedly is, and that's what everybody should follow. So the government should fund 9 billion at a time when the government has no money. At a time when we are unable to save our flood victims and people are literally dying on the streets. We need to follow this particular law, ignore all other constitutional rights, that the safety nets and welfares that we have to provide to the people, and cater to the whims of one particular leader who does not even want to go to election rallies anymore himself, just wants to conduct those by video link and waste Pakistan's 9 billion rupees. And this is what's happening time and again. Unfortunately, I will also be very clear on the terrible behavior that the government has, by the fact that they are not going to the courts when they ought to. Even the fact that Lahore High Court giving this order, if you were to read the judgment, you see that they had a very lazy defense. If you were to read through the government's defense, it's quite nonsensical. I would honestly use your platform and request the government to appoint my colleague Yasser Hamdani as a lawyer here, because I'm sure somebody could do a much better job than what their current legal team is doing. These are important matters of the state which nobody seems to be handling within their legal issues. Nobody is bringing these facts up that we're even discussing on behalf of the government, not being a part of the government, and that just reflects on how lazy they are. So leaving aside the flawed legal policy, the fact remains that the government is simply, not just for practical reasons, but also for reasons that pertain to law itself, which mandates and which imposes a responsibility upon the government to ensure the welfare of its people. And security, by the way, always trumps legal rights.
No, but Safiullah, the government is saying, they're saying consistently that, you know, as far as the bypolls are, as far as any elections in this country is concerned, their stance is very clear. They're saying we are ready for any elections, but we don't have funds, we don't have the personnel, we don't have the security situation to conduct these elections. You know, a good case or a bad case, those are facts that are in front of the entire nation at this time.
Absolutely.
You know, we are grappling with trying to come to an agreement with the IMF. With the rupee depreciating, we are looking at another, as far as the government is concerned, we are looking at another potential mini budget. You know, the potential increases that will come with that the government has to do. And you know, the finance minister has said so, their hands are tied, they can't do anything at this time. So those are facts in front of the entire nation, and certainly in front of the judiciary also, Yasser.
And I think as far as there is a way out in the constitution, that's Article 254. It applies, and this is why Article 54 exists in the first place.
Okay.
If you can't have something done within a certain period of time, that doesn't make subsequent exercise of that particular act to be invalid. So for some reason, and this is very interesting, when I look at the judgment, there is absolutely no discussion on Article 254. If I'm
absolutely
no discussion whatsoever. So it's something that at this time the courts have to also look at whether or not we're going to have a situation where an orderly, free and fair election is even possible. How is it possible if you don't have the army and the support of the security services, as it were?
Okay.
So it's not possible. So this defeats the entire exercise in the first place.
So that, you know, so those things, unfortunately, I think it's not easy for the judiciary at this time. You know, they have, it's a very tough time for anybody, you know, at this time. And certainly I think our judiciary also, our judges also are dealing with, unfortunately, they're being put in a position by the opposition of, you know, of this unreasonable proportions that, you know, one would not have liked. I think one has to concede that also. It's not just, I think, the political parties, but it's also the judiciary that's in a tough spot, because they have the law on the one hand, the practicality is the issue, and overall, you know, whether these things can actually, saying the elections should be held is one thing, but can they be held is another.
Exactly.
Which I think they have to.
And what happens if the Election Commission of Pakistan now decides not to give a date for the elections?
They can't. I mean, if they're unable to give a date. And
if they're unable
so
to
what happens? What is the legal remedy then?
Yeah, that's what I think frankly is that the Election Commission chairman has to resign. And once he resigns, you get another, so the cycle starts again, right? You have to appoint a new election chairman of the Election Commission, then he comes in, then the same direction applies to him, then ultimately he resigns, and this goes on forever.
Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for being with us. Maqbool,
Mahrukh, you have asked me one thing. May I mention about the cases? Just running reference. Tosha Khana case is he's being tried in that case by the district and session judge. Today, day before yesterday as well, he confessed using money of Shaukat Khanum on different other projects, which is an offense. Then foreign funding case is also he's being tried. 190 million case which was pilfered, that he is facing the different forums. Concealing accounts of a big bank in Islamabad, depositing and drawing millions of rupees in his own signatures has not been disclosed in his total declaration of assets. So there are a variety of host of cases in which he is there to face the consequences. So he is not on a very strong footing as far as his political career is concerned. That case is also almost mature, unfortunately. I don't want to mention that about his daughter. I refer to the case of Los Angeles. So about his daughter, unfortunately, which he didn't declare as a family member.
Right.
So all these.
So there are legal challenges, you're saying, for the former Prime Minister anyway.
Very serious legal challenges.
Right.
And
Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have, Rana Sahab. We're running out of time. Thank you so much for being with us. Barrister Yasser Hamdani, thank you for joining us. Barrister Safiullah Ghauri, thank you for being with us. Of course, the question remains that even with a legal decision in place at this time, as far as the Lahore High Court is concerned, the question is the practicality of it. The question is, when the government says they don't have funds, when the Election Commission says it doesn't have the necessary funds, the necessary personnel, as far as the ranges are concerned, they're not available. The help that is needed, the resources that is needed as far as the Election Commission are concerned are simply not there. How will the elections be held? All of those questions remain. Let's see what happens in a couple of weeks. We, of course, will determine where things go. Thank you so much for joining us today.